Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the patch notes for Project Zomboid's recent update, which was dropped on the July 1st blog, and I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that you guys might not be aware of that came along with that update. So all the footage that you're seeing in the background of this video is from that new update, and we'll be talking about some of the changes you'll be able to find for yourself in the current build. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to drop it a like and hit that subscribe button for more Project Zomboid gameplay, tips and guides. We've also recently launched the channel's Patreon page if you want to support the channel, gain access to unique Discord channels where you can suggest ideas for my videos, and get your name on the upcoming credits page at the end of my videos. So let's jump into it. Quite a lot of stuff in this update is quality of life changes, so I'm not going to cover every single thing that's in these patch notes, but what I will do is focus on the larger changes, additions and fixes, whilst highlighting the ones that I also think make for a good discussion. So I'm going to jump right into this one with one of my favorite changes of this update, which is specifically related to farming. I'm sure there's quite a few survivors out there that have planted rows upon rows of crops in the past, only to find that you have to right click on each individual plot, then select water, then select the amount you want to water them with. Well, that can get really tedious, of course, after a few clicks, so the developers have come up with a system that it's a little less tedious to do and a little less mind-numbing. Now, when you either select seeds or watering, you'll be given a different cursor that allows you to select multiple crop plots easily. I know this doesn't seem like a huge deal, but trust me, it's going to save a lot of people a lot of time when it comes to farming in Project Zomboid. You'll also be able to see exactly which items are required to cure plants and crops that are infected with disease, which is incredibly handy if you're not familiar with this part of the game already. On the same note, the dev team have added a different cursor for painting or plastering walls as well to show which ones you're looking to paint. Apparently this cursor was already active with controllers, which I wouldn't know, but it is now available on mouse and keyboard as well. Next up, we've got some environmental changes, and there's one in particular that I think you'll want to hear. So previously, players were able to take items like bookcases, dumpsters, fridges, whatever, and place them in front of doorways and windows to prevent zombies from accessing a building. Now, zombies will be able to plot paths through these destroyable items. They will prefer to go around by default, but if there's no suitable path, they will start to break items like crates and bookcases to get where they want to be. This is a huge change and will actually reinforce the need for base fortification as we go forward, and will stop people from cheesing these by putting things outside of gates and doorways that otherwise won't be attacked. Sort of on the similar topic of this, zombies falling into broken glass will now be covered in blood on their torso, neck and head immediately after they fall into the glass to simulate damage that they've taken from that incident. There's now more variety in some of the crashed cars found around the map, as well as more smashed car models. When you actually jump into a vehicle, you can now press Shift E when entering a passenger seat, and if possible, you'll automatically slide over into the driver's seat, which is a nice little quality of life change. It'll mean that you don't need to open up the radial menu with V and change seat that way, which is a bit of a difficult thing to do in those panic situations where you're being swarmed by zombies. There's been quite a few smaller changes when it comes to models, animations and hairstyles, so let's take a look at some of those now as well. Firstly, there's a couple of braided hairstyles which have now been added to the game. There's also some new looks when using hats with long hairstyles, and several clothing items have been adjusted to accommodate the longer hairstyles as well. There's also the new addition of hair gel, which will allow you to adjust your hair as you'd expect into a new style. When wearing a hat, styles like the mohawk will be flattened, and of course you'll need to use the gel to fix it back up into its original position. Next, I want to take a look at some of the balance changes that have been made to the game, and I think the biggest one I can possibly mention is gas stations. Previously, gas stations were a huge part of the game, allowing you to keep your generators running and your base powered for the long term, and that is all about to change. Gas stations will no longer have an infinite source of fuel. They will eventually run dry. I'm not sure how many gas cans it will actually fill, so I'll need to do some testing with that, but I've been told that this is RNG based, which could fundamentally change the way that you play once the power runs out. You'll have to travel to different gas stations to keep your base powered, and eventually you'll need to switch to a wood or charcoal fueled cooking method and only live on food that you can catch and cook without the need for cold storage. Whether or not the team are planning to add some sort of preserving method for meat in the future is something I'd be interested to know, but for the time being we do still have pickling of foods with vinegar and jars to keep them in an edible state. If you weren't aware of that already, that's to combine a jar lid and vinegar with a vegetable of your choice, and it creates pickled foods like I just mentioned, and this will keep it from rotting indefinitely. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, so let me know in the comments. How much do you think that this is going to change the game, and is it a good change? Let me know. The last larger feature I want to talk about in this video is the procedural loot generation that has been implemented across all containers with loot. This is different to how things work at the moment, and it could prove to be a big change. So, procedural loot generation was already in place for a couple of places like the Gigamarts. Now the team have applied this to all map locations. So previously you might have walked into a restaurant like Spiffos and found a whole grab bag of items. Now every location has its own loot tables which are sorted into relevant lists. For example, looking around in a bakery, you wouldn't find things like meat or a butcher's cleaver, but you might find flour or yeast. Convenience stores, gas stations and corner stores have all had their shelves sorted as well, so you'll likely find the same sort of item on one shelf. Cigarettes on one shelf, drinks on another, that sort of thing. Medical surgeries have their content sorted into tools, medicine and doctor related clothing items, and they'll all be sorted into their own containers as well. So this is basically going to mean that looting will make a bit more sense across the board and present you with categorized loot containers specifically relating to the location in question, which is really clever stuff. Anyway, there's some other changes that are worth looking at in this update, so I'll leave a link for this in the description of the video and I'll let you guys take a look for yourselves. What are you looking forward to most in this update? Let me know in the comments. And one final note before I leave you today, a special thank you to everybody that's considering and has already backed on the Patreon. I very much appreciate it. If you are somebody that's looking to do so, there's a link for that in the description as well, so do consider it. Thanks guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.